When you think of music, it's likely that you think of something like this. For the majority of us, we write music using this type of modern staff notation. We first select a clef, such as the bass clef, C clef, or treble clef, followed by a key signature composed of either sharps or flats, and then we choose a time signature. The notes themselves include information regarding both pitch and duration, and we may then further enhance the score with even more symbols, such as accidentals, slurs, fermatas, and dynamics, to name a few. But, as you may have guessed already, this is really only one way of notating music. Across history and around the world, composers have invented various different systems, each with its own unique features and uses. Although they may seem strange at first, you'll quickly learn that each of these unorthodox systems actually tackles issues that a conventional staff notation just can't quite address. The first notation system we'll look at is called the Dodeka music notation system. Here, staves are divided into 4 lines and 3 spaces, and all 12 notes of the octave have a unique position on the staff. The main benefit of this system is that it eliminates the need for sharps and flats, and new letter names are introduced to refer to these notes. For example, C sharp is now K, D sharp is now T, and so on. The length of each note represents its duration, and the quarter note is used as the reference unit. So this would be a half note, and this would be an eighth note. When writing music using the Dodeka notation system, there is no need anymore for key signatures or accidentals. The next notation system we'll look at is called Klavar, and was invented to make playing the piano easier compared to traditional staff notation. Instead of reading music from left to right, the Klavar system uses a top-down approach, clearly establishing the relationship between the keys on the piano and the notes on the score. White keys are represented by white circles drawn in between the spaces, and black keys are represented by black circles drawn on the lines. The space between the dotted lines in the middle is the D note next to middle C on the keyboard. This notation system prioritizes readability and helps beginners learn more quickly. Another issue commonly found in traditional staff notation is the amount of space the score takes up on a page. Cipher notation aims to eliminate this problem by reducing notes to integer numbers 1 through 7, which correspond to the diatonic major scale. So, for example, in the key of C major, 1 is C and 7 is B. The number 0 is reserved for rests. Dots placed above a note represent octaves higher, and dots placed below a note represent octaves lower. A sharp is represented by a forward slash, and a flat is represented by a backward slash. Lines added to the right of a note increase the note's duration, lines added to the bottom of a note decrease the note's duration, and dotted notes work in the same way as in traditional staff notation. Here are the first few notes of the famous tune Amazing Grace, written using cipher notation. Another category of unorthodox musical notation is called graphic notation, a system composed of unconventional symbols and commonly used in avant-garde music. Unlike traditional music notation that indicates precisely how a piece should be played, graphic notation merely suggests how a piece should be played, resulting in a score with no fixed interpretation. For example, Morton Feldman's intersection number 2 is written entirely on coordinate paper, where the horizontal axis represents time, the vertical axis represents relative pitch, and the numbers inside boxes represent how many keys are to be played. Obviously, my interpretation of this piece will be vastly different than yours. A composition even more abstract than intersection number 2 is Earl Brown's December 1952, whose score consists solely of straight lines and rectangles with no clear signs for tempo, pitch, or duration. According to the composer's own notes, the performer should consider this 2D space as 3D and imagine moving through it. A final example of graphic notation is the 1967 composition by Cornelius Cardew titled Treatise, whose score consists of lines, symbols, and shapes, allowing, once again, for absolute interpretive freedom. Of course, there are many other musical notation systems that were not covered in this video, and new systems continue to be invented all the time. One could even argue that the act of putting music into symbols is, in itself, a form of art. So, the next time you want to make your music more interesting, maybe you can try writing it using a non-traditional style of notation.